Hello, welcome to Humanities 140, Critical Thinking in the Modern Age. This lecture will cover Chapter 4, which focuses on reasons. So before we get started, let's talk about the word reason, because it can be defined in a few different ways. First, we have it as being the basis of a belief. Why do you believe that aliens are going to attack the Earth? Then you can also define it as the rationale or justification for a choice. I decided to eat ice cream for dinner because I didn't feel like real food. And then thirdly, the power of logical and rational thought. In other words, the process of why. So when you say that somebody is reasonable, that means that the actions they conduct themselves with are logical and rational. One of the big issues when we look at reasoning is this concept called circular reasoning. And it is a sentence or argument that restates a concept rather than proving it. Thus, it goes in a circle, which is why it's called circular reasoning. So here's an example. President Reagan was a great communicator because he had the knack of talking effectively to the people. So basically what they did was define the word communicator to exemplify or give a reason for why he was a great communicator. On the right-hand side is a fairly silly picture, and it says, "The napkin religion is the one true religion," because it says so right here on this napkin. And again, it's meant to be absurd because circular reasoning is absurd. Now, there are two general forms. The first one is A is true because A is true. An example of this is, I am right because I'm always right. And again, what we have to say rather pointedly here is that you can't prove your assertion with a repetition of your assertion. If you want to say you're always right because I predicted this and I said that and I said this, reasons are different than just restating your assertion. Number two, A is true because B is true, and B is true because A is true. And then the example here is piracy is wrong because it's against the law, and it's against the law because it's wrong. Now, there's a variety of reasons why piracy is wrong, but in this general form, what we see here is a wonderful example of circular reasoning. There is a phenomenal novel of the 20th century called Catch-22 by Joseph Heller, and it is the ultimate novel of circular reasoning. And it became such a phenomenal example of circular reasoning that the term Catch-22 has effectively taken over the term circular reasoning. So briefly, I will read this passage from the novel, and it explains circular reasoning in a phenomenally good way. Yossarian is or crazy. The doctor. Of course he is. He has to be crazy to keep flying after all the close calls he's had. Yossarian. Why can't you ground him? Doctor. I can, but first he has to ask me. That's all he's got to do to be grounded? That's all. Then you can ground him. No, then I cannot ground him. Ah, there's a catch. A catch? Sure, Catch-22. Anyone who wants to get out of combat isn't really crazy, so I can't ground him. Yossarian. Okay, let me see if I've got this straight. In order to be grounded, I've got to be crazy, and I must be crazy to keep flying. But if I ask to be grounded, that means I'm not crazy anymore, and I have to keep flying. Doctor. You got it. That's Catch-22. So this circular reasoning eventually we realize gets us nowhere. And that's what we want to avoid. We want to avoid this idea of not getting anywhere when we're trying to explain our reasons for something. So here's a couple more examples of circular reasoning from the movie Eric the Viking. Well, if the only reason for the expedition is the looting and pillaging, and the only reason for the looting and pillaging is to pay for the next expedition, then that's a circular argument, isn't it? They cancel each other out. So when we think about any of the reasons why the Vikings would go out and loot and pillage, there's a lot of really good reasons. But it wasn't just to pay for their next expedition, which is what the comic sense in this movie is trying to demonstrate. Now also, according to the writer Isaac Asimov, who was a very, very famous science fiction writer, who did a lot of research from the past to inform his novels of the future. And he talked about how in the Middle Ages the following statement was used as an excuse not to educate women. All intelligent people know Latin, but women don't know Latin, so they must be stupid, which means there's no point in teaching them Latin. So if you're shaking your head, that's exactly the response you should have. You know, these are circular reasons, meaning there's no reason for not teaching women Latin, other than this circuitous pile of words that really don't mean anything. So let's move on to the argument. An argument is the conclusion plus the reasons to support the conclusion. The worth of an opinion must be evaluated by examining the quality of the reasons behind the opinion. And what that really means is any opinion can be valid as long as it has good quality reasons. If the reasons don't make sense or they're circuitous, then the opinion is not worthy. Whereas if you have an opinion and you have good reasons to support your opinion, that is a worthy opinion. The characteristics of an argument include, number 1, intent. Someone wants to convince someone else of something and provides reasons to believe. Number 2, the variable quality of reasons. It's up to the listener or reader to determine if the reasons are valid or invalid. And again, what we run into here is this idea of whether or not the person is using reason within their reasons. Are they logical? Are they rational? You know, we all have opinions, and take the opinion of any political issue and ask yourself why you believe or don't believe that. And ask yourself then, what is the quality of your reasons? So you could say that you don't like Donald Trump because he has weird hair. That's not really a great reason. On the other hand, you could say you don't like Donald Trump because he's very racist when it comes to Hispanic people. That's an excellent reason. So you have to know the difference between a stupid reason and a very good reason. Lastly, number 3, coherency. The argument and the reasons supporting the argument must be clear and concise. In other words, you can't provide reasons that don't make sense to people, because if it doesn't make sense, then your opinion doesn't make sense. And we end up where we started from, with the idea that your opinion is not valid because you don't have worthy reasons. Some of the ways that you can identify reasons within an opinion piece is because they use words that are listed below. So things like because, as a result of, is supported by, studies show, for the reason that, in view of, because the evidence shows, and first, second, and third. These words are beacons for a reader or a listener to identify the specific reasons that a person is giving. Evidence provides the reasons. Evidence is specific information that a person uses to provide proof for something he or she is trying to claim is true. So if your opinion is on a certain topic, you need to find things like facts, research findings, and there's tons of studies out there that tell you everything you ever wanted to know, statistics, expert opinion, real-life examples, and personal testimonials. And the quality of each of those is different, and we're going to talk about that later in the semester. But evidence is kind of like building a court case, a law case, where you're giving your data to support your opinion that provides the evidence to make your reasons worthy. So when you come to your own conclusion, it should not just be based on how you feel. It has to be based on data, facts, information. And often in a college class, you are asked to come to a conclusion or an opinion based upon the course readings and the lecture. Your opinion should be based upon reasons and evidence. Don't just say, well, that's my feelings, and I don't care if I don't have any good reasons, but those are my feelings and they're valid. Well, that's all well and good when it comes to an abstract feeling like love, but if you're trying to explain why the Roman Empire fell, you need the actual facts. It is advisable to look the facts up and the information in the readings and lecture before you come to the conclusion. Don't walk into an opinion piece with your mind already made up, because then you're going to deal with other problems. Instead, read the information, then form your opinion. So, this last slide is going to give you an example of how to form a conclusion. After a semester in a sociology class, you are asked to give an educated opinion on which racial group suffers the most economic hardship in the United States. Before you answer, you need to look at statistics on some of these ideas: average income, retirement savings, welfare usage, food stamps, access to health care, access to education, and unemployment figures before you form your conclusion. And these statistics will form the reasons for your conclusions. And, if you've taken a sociology class, you probably already know that the Native Americans are the social class or the racial class that suffers the most in this country. And there's a variety of reasons for that, which you should take sociology to find out about. So that finishes this presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to text or email me. Have a great day, and I hope the presentation was helpful. Thank you.